In this video, we will talk about how to find the square root of a decimal number. So I have two examples for us to work through here. Let's check out the first one. Let's say we want to find the square root of 22.09. How can we do that? Well, it turns out we can use kind of a modified version of long division, where we say, let's put 22.09 right here. And the first step is, from the decimal point, we need to go to the left and form groups of two numbers. So here's a group of two. And from the right, we also need to form groups of two. So here's a group of two, and that will be important later on. So the first step is we need to ask ourselves, what number squared gets us close to 22 without going over? So if we think about 3 squared, that's 9. 4 squared, that's 16. 5 squared, that's 25. So 5 is too much because it puts us over 22. So it looks like we're going to use the number 4 because that gets us closest to 22 without going over. So we'll put a 4 right here, and whatever number we put right here, we also have to write up here. So then, just like in ordinary long division, we'll say, what is 4 times 4? That's 16. So we'll write that right here. And then we'll do 22 minus 16. That's 6. Now, in ordinary long division, you would bring down the next number, but we said we're going to work in pairs of 2. So we actually have to bring down both the 0 and the 9. So we'll bring those down, and we're left with 609. So we'll extend this line down here. Now, the next step, and this is also a little different than long division, we have to add these two values. So 4 plus 4, that will be 8. So that will go right here. And then we're going to repeat the process where we ask ourselves, what number can we put right here squared that will get us close to 609 without going over? So for example, this whole number is either going to be 81, 82, 83, 84, something like that. So some digit 1 through 9. So let's try, let's say a 5. So if we do 85, we have to do 5 times 5, this number 5. So let's write that over here. So we have 85 times 5. Let's see what that is. 5 times 5 is 25. Put a 5 here. The 2 goes up here. 8 times 5 is 40, plus 2 is 42. So 425. So that's not very close to 609. So let's try another one. We know that we need to go higher than 5. So let's try, let's say 7. So let's try 87. Remember, if we choose a 7, we have to multiply it by 7. So let's see what that is. 7 times 7 is 49. So the 9 goes here. The 4 goes up here. 8 times 7 is 56. Plus 4, that's 60. So we get 609. So check that out. That's exactly this number. So the number we'll write here is going to be a 7. So we'll write a 7, and remember, whatever we write right here, we also have to write up here. And notice that we've gone beyond the decimal point, so that means we need to put a decimal point right here. So the 7 will go behind the decimal point. So we said 87 times 7 was 609. So when we subtract that, we get 0, and notice there's nothing left to bring down here, so that means we're done. So that's our final answer. So the square root of 22.09 is 4.7. All right, let's try one more example. Let's say we want to find the square root of 334.89. So once again, we'll use this modified version of long division that we did in the previous example. So we'll write 334.89 right here. And remember, from the decimal place, we'll extend to the left and we'll look for pairs of two numbers. So here's a pair of two numbers. And notice that we can't form a pair of two numbers right here, so we'll just put a line right there. This one will just have to be one number all by itself. And then from the right of the decimal place, we'll do the same thing where we form a pair of two. Okay, so we have to work with this first pair, this first group that we've identified, which is just going to be the single number of 3. And we have to say what number squared gets us close to 3 without going over. So if we think 1 squared, that's just 1. 2 squared is 4. So 2 is too big because it puts us over 3. So we're just going to use a 1 in this case. So if we write a 1 right here, we also have to write a 1 up here. So 1 times 1, that's just 1. So we'll do 3 minus 1, which is 2, and now we have to bring down this next pair. So we have to bring down both the 3 and the 4. So we'll bring that down and we get 234. So let's extend this line. And now remember, the trick we had to use is add these two values. So 1 plus 1, we'll put a 2 right here, and then we have to figure out what number squared that we want to put right here. So if we do, it'll either be a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. So let's just try a 25. So let's start with 5 again. So let's say, what is 25? And remember, whatever we pick right here, that's what we're multiplying by. So 25 times 5. So 5 times 5 is 25. Put the 2 up here. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 is 125. So that's not very close to 234. So let's try a bigger number. Let's try 8. So let's say 28. Remember, whatever we pick here, we have to multiply it by. So 28 times 8. 8 times 8 is 64. Put the 6 up here. 8 times 2 is 16, plus 6 is 22. So 224 is what we get. So it looks like that's as close as we're going to get without going over 234. So let's use an 8. So we'll put an 8 right here. And remember, whatever we put here, we also have to put up here. So we'll write an 8 right here. So we said 28 times 8, that's 224. So we'll subtract 224. So 234 minus 224, that's 10. And now we have to bring down this next pair of numbers. So we'll bring down the 8 and the 9. And notice we've just gone beyond the decimal point, so we'll put a decimal point up here too. Okay, we'll extend this line again. And remember the trick, we have to add this value with this value that we chose. So 28 plus 8, that's 36. So we'll write a 36 right here. And then we just need to figure out what is this last digit right here. So what number squared do we want to put right here? So let's try a 5 again. So 365. So I'll write that over here. So let's do 365 times 5. So we get 5 times 5 is 25. 6 times 5 is 30, plus 2 is 32. And 3 times 5 is 15, plus 3 is 18. So 1825. So that was too big. We went over 1089. So let's try a smaller number. Let's try a 3. So we'll say 363 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 6 is 18. Put an 8 here, the 1 up here. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. So we get 1089, and that's exactly what this number is. So it looks like a 3 is what we'll use. And remember, if we put a 3 here, we also have to put it up here. So we said 363 times 3 is 1089. So when we subtract that, we're left with 0. And notice, there's nothing left to bring down. So that means we're done. So the square root of 334.89 is 18.3.